morning. I thought I'd spend a little while talking about what's going on with the PC industry and what our software strategies are. And then spend about 30 minutes towards the end. Jeff will come up and I'll answer whatever questions people have. It's a very exciting time in the PC world because people are equipped to browse the internet, to do electronic mail, to have office productivity software. That's just the entry fee to have a company that can work in an effective way. There isn't much pushback there. The real questions are around how do we manage that to keep the costs fairly reasonable, and how do we create it, given that that's a fairly large investment, how do we make sure that in terms of redefining our business processes, we get as much value as we can out of that? Where are the examples where people are doing that very, very well? So there's really two imperatives that brings to Microsoft. One is to make sure that we're gathering up the best ideas, those case studies, and sharing those broadly. And the other is to simplify what it takes to roll out a set of systems like that. In the last year, our top goal was getting credibility in terms of having the internet standards built into all of our products. And that meant that Microsoft became the most active company in defining internet standards. A lot of people on the committees addressing the tough issues that remain, the security issues, the bandwidth issues, the user identification issues. And there's very good progress on those things. It also meant turning our product cycle a little bit faster than we ever have in the past. Both Office, Windows, coming along with Internet Explorer, and really redefining what's built into NT. You know, it's only 18 months ago, we didn't think of NT as including a transaction processor, which now with the Microsoft transaction system, we are putting that in every copy of NT server. We didn't think of it as including a web server. Now IIS, with its incredible indexing capability and the highest web performance, is part of the operating system. We didn't even have queue management software available as an add-on, and now we've decided that's a standard part of the operating system. So we're really taking the server and defining it to be something a lot richer than it ever has been in the past. And I think that's a trend that certainly will continue. You know, what happened with Office on the desktop, incorporating more and more functionality, that was an important trend. What happened on the client, where Windows would take more and more functionality. Now we're seeing that up on the server in an even more powerful form, where people just want to buy a server that's got everything they need. Eventually what this will mean is that most of our server SKUs will include the database. And we'll do a very deep integration of message store, file store, web store, and the database. The way you browse it, the way you program to it, the way you secure it, the way you distribute it, all of that will essentially be one product, even though there'll still be a few flavors of it that don't include the database for some people. Most of the market will switch over to think of that all that storage is being done in one way. And it's a very powerful approach. It gets the market away from having to think about what SQL do I buy, what HTTP do I buy. You just buy a server, whether it's an enterprise server or a small business server, and it's got everything you need. Even extending out eventually to some communications functions like voicemail, fax, things that today are fairly complex to add on. Even things like PBX capability, where you just put in a few cards in the PC and have the lines go up, and that becomes your PBX. And all the way you keep track of employees and what they can do and what kind of cross-billing there is to track things. It's all done through one server because that is the hub of all communications taking place within a company. So we've come a long ways in the internet, and it really has driven integration, which is something Microsoft does very, very well. It's driven that at a higher pace than ever before. As we look out at this next year, the two top priorities we've got for the product groups are scalability and manageability. Scalability is a hot topic for me right now because I just came back last night from our Scalability Day event that was out in New York City. And that was really a fun event because we've been working on this scalability for a long, long time. The reason we care so much about scalability is not that lots of people buy $1 million servers. I mean, it's fun to sell $1 million servers because even small percentage profitability on it is a lot of money. But the strategic reason we're going after this is so that anybody who buys a Windows NT server knows they have total headroom, that they're not going to run out, no matter what their number of mail messages is, or what their web traffic is, or their transaction rates are, that you can just add machines on, and you'll go further than any mainframe or Unix system has been able to go. And so we decided to really show our scalability. We had to establish two things. First is that for systems with 1 or 2 or 4 or 8 processors, not only does the PC platform have the best price performance, but it has the best absolute performance, better than Sun or anybody else that's out there. And fortunately, there are audited benchmarks, so-called TPC benchmarks and some others, where we've been able to show that. And the transaction rates are pretty incredible, over 14,000 transactions a minute of these TPCs, which are fairly complicated transactions. But we didn't want to stop at 8 processors. I mean, that does take care of 95% of Sun's business is 8 processors or less. But it still leaves that 5% where some customer might dream they would want to move up to that. And so we showed how we use clustering techniques that take you beyond these symmetric multiprocessor SMP systems. We showed how you use clustering to get up into much higher rates that have never been achieved by any machine before. A couple of the demos were pretty stunning. I'm not sure the press understood how stunning they were, but from an engineer's point of view, I was impressed with these. One was we took a single NT system and we put a terabyte of storage on it. A terabyte, you know, it's 1,000 gigabytes. It's a million megabytes. That's more storage than all the pages on the internet. If you took every New York Stock Exchange transaction ever in history, it's 10 times as much as that. A terabyte is a lot of data. In the world today, there are 15 terabyte databases that are being used. Most of them are it's a subsidiary of NCR called Teradata that's specialized where you're doing very rich sales analysis. Walmart has a big one, TRW Credit has a big one, and they use very specialized solutions to manage a terabyte. So we decided, well, what's interesting that's a terabyte? And we ended up talking to all these satellite guys who have images of the Earth. And so we got the Russian satellite data and the US satellite data and put it up on this server. And we're going to put that up on the web. It won't be done until the fall because we're still processing a lot of the tapes, the data tapes. But you'll be able to just type in the name of the city or anything to describe a location and you'll be able to see the satellite map down to what's called 1 meter resolution. So you can basically see cars in the parking lot and see what's going on. You can't recognize people, but that's the next iteration we'll get down to. That level of capability. So that's one machine with a terabyte of data on it. The next thing we showed was a system with 20 machines clustered together. And this is using our transaction server. The first demo, we actually had to use the next version of SQL that doesn't ship until early next year to make it work effectively. This demo, we used all shipping software, NT 4.0, SQL 6.5, and the transaction server that's out. And by putting these systems together, we were able to create effectively a bank processing backend that was handling 1 billion transactions a day. And 1 billion transactions a day is 4 times greater than any company does today. The New York Stock Exchange is about 20 million a day. Credit card verification is about 50 million a day. The biggest is AT&T, where you complete phone calls. A phone call is a transaction where you have to log the link and what it is and all that. They do about 200 million a day, and that is the most demanding transaction system. People used to think the airline systems were the most transactions, but those are only at about 50 or 60 million a day. And so we took this off-the-shelf, actually it's compact in this case, hardware, and it was a $2 million system because of the disks. The disks are 90% of the cost in something like this, and just showed how you could run a billion transactions. And many times we've kept it up and running for several days straight. So we've done many billions of transactions to it. That was to me was the most interesting. We also showed a single machine SMT4 processor machine handling 100 million web hits a day. So all but 4 websites could be done off of one machine. And then we showed a very high-end mail server, actually it was an HP machine, handling 40,000 mail users against a single server. And so we just tried to go through all the different areas. NT today is the leader in absolute in web performance and mail performance. The thing we're not the leader on is database performance. We lead in price performance, but in order to get up to the very, very highest end, we need the clustering stuff that doesn't ship until later this year. And we have a lot of people, a lot of third parties coming in to build on top of that. So anyway, scalability, that's a big thing. A year from now or 2 years from now, I don't know which, it'll be common sense that PCs are not low-end technology, that PCs are the highest-end computer technology on the planet. And it's very simple. Intel makes the fastest chips. We invest more in system software development than anybody else. And we care about being super high-end. Sun on system software probably spends $100 million a year on the operating system. We spend $1 billion a year. And we're not inefficient in the way that we do it, so that factor of 10 actually matters. And that's a nice breakthrough for people mentally. It doesn't mean they'll unplug all their mainframes, because rewriting the applications on those mainframes is a big deal. It takes a long time. But at least people won't buy any new ones. And they'll think of how they cycle across. And the key point here isn't so much to attack Sun or mainframes as it is that in this digital world, people are going to have very demanding applications. You know, if you take the Microsoft website where we're trying to analyze who's coming in, what are they doing, it's a lot of data there. And sitting and pivoting that and digging through it, it's incredibly interesting. But you need very powerful computers that have these huge databases in order to be able to do that. And so we don't want there to be anything that holds that back. With the cost of storage coming down like it is, you know, keeping everything online, that's going to be very doable. So that's scalability. The second big focus is manageability. And this is actually the top priority. It is what we're spending the most time on. It relates to the fact that when we talk to PC users about why don't you buy more software? I mean, you buy this machine, why don't you go back to the store and buy more software? You know, what is it that's holding you back? A lot of it has to do with the complexity of the machine, thinking, hey, if I buy more software, the thing might stop working. And I had a friend who bought more software, and their file system filled up, and they deleted a few things, and the machine never worked again. And so there's a certain fragility in these machines that's real. And then you take the real fragility, and you know you hear about it, and you think, geez, once it's going on, I'm just not going to venture out, even if there might be something neat and new that I should do with it. So you get a lot of users who don't get more software. And so we've got to make the thing a lot simpler. Now, in parallel with that, you have corporations that are adding up all their costs for managing these PCs, their help desk costs, hardware updating, various things. And they find it's mostly soft costs. The way Gartner does it has a bunch of things thrown in that shouldn't be thrown in. But even if you narrow it to the right things, it is very expensive. So most of the money people are spending on personal computers are not being paid to you or to us. And if we can make personal computers more manageable, the percentage that they pay in terms of buying hardware and software can be raised from, say, 20% up to 50%. And technologically, that is a totally achievable thing, making these things very easy to manage, it can be done. There's so much low-hanging fruit here, it's largely our fault for not paying more attention to it, but it wasn't our top issue. And now it is. And I'll just give you one concept in this that's very much a breakthrough concept that doesn't come out till NT5. And that is, there's always a problem in state management with PCs. It's really nice to have your files and your applications and your registry entries and your preferences down on your PC. The beauty of that is you control it. If you take your machine portably, it's all there. You get to do what you want. It's extremely responsive. It's not like time sharing where you have to worry, oh, is somebody else doing something big on the server? My machine's not responding to me. And you get to go out and pick the software that helps you get things done. So if the legal department sees a package that's great for what they do, case management, they don't have to go to the IT people and get it approved and go through a lot of hassle. They just boom, buy it, install it, and off they go. So that's the beauty of having local storage on the PC. There's another, there are benefits of having central storage. If all your state, everything you do is stored up on the server, then it would be backed up every night. If you wanted to buy a new machine, you would just say, here, I'm logging in, it's me. And all of that state would be there, and you would just have access to it. Today, it's very hard when you upgrade from one machine to another machine to think, well, what files do I move, what files do I not move? We've made it just impossible to do. We actually, the registry, although it has some nice things, made this more complex as opposed to less complex, because it mixes per machine and per user things. Anyway, so central state is super nice, because you could just go log on anybody's machine and have what you like. So we're not going to be able to pick between local state and central state. There's these guys who are promoting these things called network computers, which I'll talk about, who want the whole world to go back to central state. And there's no way that's going to happen. It's just got incredible problems. The expense it creates and the overhead it creates in terms of managing those servers is just intolerable. But what we want is a solution where you have the best of both worlds. You can disconnect and go use your files, you come back, somehow those files get up here so they're backed up and you can get them from other machines. And so you want to replicate all the changes on the client machine up to the server and vice versa. And you want to do that in a way that doesn't force you to spend a lot more money on the servers. And so this is what we have figured out how to do in NT5. That you can have the state in both places. And so you get the responsiveness and you can disconnect, but you can also roam to another machine, upgrade to another machine very, very easily. And so it'll make a big difference. We picked this term zero admin in Windows because the idea is that you'll never visit the individual machine. You can do everything from the server instead of going out to that machine. You can make all these machines uniform, you can see what's going on from the center. And so that's a very big step forward. And so we think our goal here is for PC users of all types to get them to understand that installing software can be made very easy, and upgrading software can be made very automatic and very easy, so that the friction that the complexity they perceive, rightly so, in wondering, will this overload my machine and break things, that we can eliminate that almost totally. And it'll put a different dynamic into the software market, from the home user to the business user included there. So that's super important and a very big focus for us. We're very excited about what's going on with the PC itself. Intel keeps moving up performance. Intel's got a tough job. They do it very, very well. But their job, this year they're trying to tell you that 100 megahertz Pentium is a terrible system. Next year they'll have to tell you that a 200 megahertz system is terrible. 2 years later they'll have to tell you that a 500 megahertz system is terrible. Well, the only way they can do that is if we write software that's very, very cool, that we and others write software that take advantage of those new things. Well, fortunately, there still is room to do that. 3D graphics, motion video, these really do improve the PC experience. And video conferencing, being able to share documents, see each other, coordinate things, it's a pretty fundamental capability that will become standard in the PC. Intel's doing its job very well, having AMD out there now with a reasonable chip and good capacity spurs Intel on to keep pushing the limit there, so that's a pretty good dynamic in the marketplace. The guys who do storage are even more amazing than the processor industry. And it's going to be hard to buy a machine with less than 4 gigabytes of storage next year, because the way that costs work when you make disks, making a 1 gig disk only costs about 5% less than making a 4 gig disk. So you might as well make a 4 gig disk and just hope that people find some benefit from the 2nd through 4th gigabyte that they got there. That's a lot of storage. I mean, you could type your entire lifetime and not fill up the first gigabyte. And particularly as we can do a much better job with storage management. The way PCs are today, you end up with things that you installed a year ago that are hidden in these funny file directories with all these file names, you don't know what they are. That's another part of this manageability thing, to make it very obvious to people what they've installed, what space it's taking, and not have people have to look at this incredibly complex hierarchical space. If you get out in a 3 to 5 year time frame, to really make the PC move rapidly, we need big breakthroughs in screen technology, which will certainly come. Flat screen, very inexpensive, very high res. And we need the new input techniques to finally succeed. Handwriting, voice, vision, and that's what we invest in Microsoft Research. And the progress there is pretty phenomenal. It's one of these things where it's really hard to describe, how far along we are, because if you do a demo, you can do a demo that impresses people to no end. Because if you've trained the system and the person knows, sort of, the user has been trained as well. Subconsciously, they know how to speak more clearly to the computer than people in general know. So the demo makes it look like it's here today. That demo has been done for the last 10 years, bringing a computer on stage and talking to it. But when you roll those systems out in the real world, it ends up being awful. Unless you somehow can't use a keyboard at all, the keyboard is far, far preferable. And so you have to get the accuracy rate up from about 97% where it is today to a little over 99%. And then people are willing to use the thing. And it's tough because it turns out to solve that, you can't just solve the speech. You actually have to have common sense. You have to understand context and be able to disambiguate based on really understanding what the person's likely to be saying. Because subconsciously, humans are getting rid of all those ambiguities. And so it means we need a model of the world and typical sentences and word meanings. But that's what all this speed and large storage is all about, is allowing us to do that. And we are making great progress. In the world of hardware, we've always believed there would be some variety. Machines in your pocket. The PC is the dominant hardware type that you'll sit close to and be able to read off the screen and have good resolution. But you're certainly going to have intelligent TV sets, things like web TV, and you're going to have these handheld devices. Now, the PC at 80 million units a year and growing just overwhelms those other markets today. And web TV today has sold on the order of 100,000 units, which if you say, oh, it's a new product, hey, that's great. But if you compare it to PCs, it's nothing. Part of it is that you have to pay the $20 a month in connectivity charges, and so that's fairly expensive in a sense, even though the device itself is very cheap. There's a lot that can be done to bring down that monthly charge, make the machine even a little less expensive than it is, and have that be an easy entry into electronic mail. We think electronic mail will be everywhere. There'll be public terminals, you can get your mail. Everybody will have email addresses on their business cards, and we want to accelerate that, which is why we got involved in that lower end device. Our handheld PC stuff, that's going very well, but again, compared to the 80 million number, it's small numbers. If you take everybody in the market together worldwide, you have less than 2.5 million units being sold. It's going up pretty healthy, about 20 to 30% a year, with the success we've had, the success the Palm Computing pilot has had as well. And we'll be doing much better versions of that product every year. Cheaper, better screen, easier to interact with. And so we think we can drive it to be something like a 10 to 15 million unit a year market within about a 5-year period. In terms of other companies in the market, we've strengthened a lot of our key partnerships. Our work with, our key partners historically have been people like Compaq and Intel, and those are still super important partnerships. But we're doing more with HP, more with DEC, particularly in terms of getting these large network solutions out there. There's a lot of pieces to be put together. And it's our sense that marketplace demand, as companies really want to do intranets, and they want to get into this electronic world, the demand for somebody to help them set up these systems is going to exceed supply. Now that's an opportunity. It means that companies that have the services and have made the investments and have these showcase examples of how to do it, they are going to get more business than they know how to deal with. And most of that will be small companies. It won't be DEC and EDS and Anderson, because the larger companies, particularly the large consulting companies, they lag. That is, they'll adopt new methodologies after the marketplace does. It's much more smaller companies that get in, smaller solution providers that get in and do the state-of-the-art things. And so that's where we need to work even more with people of that size and really highlight what they do. Cisco is a new company that we're working a lot with now, because if there's anything that stands in the way of this great picture of PCs and email and internet being pervasive, the one bottleneck could be getting high-speed connections. Business to business, there's not that much of a problem, but getting out to homes, it's certainly going to be most of the next decade before you have much better speed than 28A connections. And so we need super high-speed routers, and we need the right regulatory policies to get companies to invest in that. It will be slow going. PC cable modems work, ADSL works, but the infrastructure just doesn't come overnight, because there's a lot of running new wires that has to be done there. So I get a little bit worried about that, not letting the market have its natural growth. In terms of competition, in this scalability day, you might have thought Sun was the only competitor we had, because all our benchmarks were against them. Sun is nice because they're a Unix vendor who we do nothing with. And unlike most relationships in this industry where you have some competition and some cooperation, that's the case where it's a very pure relationship. And Sun is behind in terms of a lot of these performance things. And on the desktop, Sun sales went down last year. They sold less desktop machines last year than they sold the year before, because the NT-based systems really are taking over there. And we just take that as a given. We have to keep driving that forward. And now they've been able to stay healthy because of very, very expensive servers. And so that's what yesterday's event was aimed at. We're very keen in our competition with Netscape. Getting our browser share up is very critical to us. And making sure people understand when it comes to mail and groupware that what they've got are fairly immature offerings. And particularly as we've included a lot of functionality into the system, and we're integrating that in a way that's quite simple, we're very keen that people not go off in that direction. Our browser share at retail has improved, but it's still an area where we are not even at the 50% level broadly, and so that's a bit of a disappointment to us. We still think a lot about Corel, because they're sort of a fast-moving competitor, particularly in terms of how they use low price and retail channel to drive things. And they did have a period of about 3 months where they drove a fair bit of retail volume. Fortunately for us, most of that was WordPerfect upgrade, not new users or people switching away from our stuff. But it's something that we track pretty carefully. IBM is very complicated. They are actually about our biggest customer. They don't sell quite as many PCs as Compaq does, but they pay us a little bit more per PC than Compaq does. So it's very close. Who is Microsoft's biggest customer in the world? But then, of course, IBM is the company that pushes nodes. And if there's any competitive battle where we're really in the thick of it right now and just really getting the upper hand because of the recent releases we've done, it's Exchange versus nodes. That's a very big deal to us, because once somebody picks a mail structure, it's very tough to get them to go back and change it. You know, take our battle with Novell, which we did very well on. We didn't necessarily win on file sharing. I mean, eventually we got a lot of that business as well. But the reason we won there is because people want a general purpose server. They want a server that can do more than just file sharing. And Novell didn't give that to the marketplace. So it was a shift in terms of how people think about servers and wanting uniformity between the desktop OS and the server OS. That's how we got ahead and then worked with the channel and built the momentum that should drive us to a very, very strong position. In the case of mail and groupware, just fighting it out in the trenches is going to be fairly difficult. They've got the strength of IBM and a product that is a regional product. And so that's a tough one for us. It's an area of very heavy investment. I'll just close by talking about some of the opportunities for us working together, looking forward. I do think using the internet as a way of reaching out to customers, this industry should be a showcase, and we're actually not doing as much of that as we should. You know, Microsoft's trying to get going on this, and have all the people who want to come in and be able to customize what kind of information they should see when they come to our website, but there's a lot more we can do. I think that, you know, for all of you, you can streamline how you work with customers. Not that you would purely work with them through the internet, but in terms of checking order status, in terms of seeing what things are available, in terms of putting up their standard configurations and being able to just dial in and see those. The opportunity is pretty incredible. You know, Dell did actually a fairly modest amount, and they got showcased as, you know, the rock star of doing that because they actually were getting a fair number of orders. And when you look at orders across the internet, there's really two things that are worth separating. One is business that you would have done anyway, but instead of doing it with paperwork, it's being done electronically. And so it's more efficient for you and more efficient for the customer. That's a good thing. And that should be very worth investing in. The other is where you're using the internet as a way of being able to get customers that you wouldn't have been able to get because they somehow would have been aware of what you have available, and it was easy for them to find you across the internet. That latter thing is probably more interesting and will take longer to develop, but it is very important as well. And so a lot of the paperwork in this industry should go away. And I'm going to jihad inside Microsoft to get rid of all the paper forms that we have. And one of the defenses they always come back when I say, well, let's get rid of that paper form, is it's a form that we use with people outside. And I say, well, get them to dial in and use the internet to fill out the form. And so we'll be pushing pretty hard to do everything electronically. We've made some progress there. And we are interested in making it easy for you in terms of providing our platform technology to let you be out in the internet in a rich way. And the last thing is just this issue of installing these systems, these electronic mail systems, electronic commerce systems. These are very complex things, and the capacity to do this is still, it's not nearly what it should be. I mean, we have our certification programs. When we had our Fusion event down in Orlando a few weeks ago, the thing we got the strongest response to was helping our solution providers recruit to do joint programs with local colleges and joint job fairs to help draw people in. And I was amazed to see what a responsive chord that struck. But it's something that people who invest now really are going to be in a strong position. I just close by saying, I see the PC business as incredibly strong. I mean, in some ways, when I think how complex the PC is to use, I think, wow, we sold 80 million of those machines, and they're super hard to use. How many could we sell if we actually made them reasonable? And really made it so it is the communication vehicle that everybody's tied into. So, we've done very well with what we've got so far. But I think in terms of retail software, small business networks and small business servers, enterprise systems, we're really just scratching the surface. So it's a great position to be in where there's a lot of upside for all of us. With that, I'll ask Jeff to come on out and we'll answer any questions people have.
Great, we have some microphones, and also feel free to just raise your hand and I'll do what I can to repeat the question.
I think everybody here really applaud all the things that you mentioned. Do you see any of them as 10x factors or inflection points?
In particular, how it might provide opportunities for some of our partners here today.
Well, I think, the percentage of knowledge workers that have PCs is high enough that you can't multiply it by a factor of 10. You can multiply it by a factor of 2 or a factor of 3, and you can move people up to use the PC in a much more profound way once people get it in their mind that it is the primary communication tool, that sharing documents with net meetings, so you don't have to go face to face a lot of times, being able to easily call up what went on with something like NetShow, sitting and using email, getting everybody you work with inside your company and outside so that they're reading that and doing it that way, and driving all this paper into electronic form. That is a paradigm shift. I mean, Xerox called it right 20 years ago when they said paperless office. Now they were way premature because it was just too expensive. There wasn't scanners, OCR, internet, all these pieces that you'd have to have to really move communications in that direction. And that's there now. That is the big shift that's taking place.
Other next question, yes, please.
I have several questions regarding Memphis. I can ask them all at once or one after.
Go ahead all at once.
First, can you tell us what are some of the many new features and benefits of Memphis as it relates to the customers? Secondly, will Memphis replace Windows 95, or will they coexist as two separate viable platforms from the day of launch? In other words, will the Windows 95 go away completely? Third, will we see a whole new line of applications that specifically exploit the features of Memphis and run better, faster, kind of thing? Fourth, how will Memphis be positioned at launch time? And finally, I guess Memphis is a code name, you know what it's going to be called.
Okay, great. I'll just repeat to make sure everybody's back. New features of Memphis will replace Windows 95. Do we expect specific applications exploiting Memphis? Perhaps part of that is the whole opportunity of information channels and things related to IE4, editing a little bit your own way, and positioning of the product.
Well, Memphis it's a big deal for us, and we're not being as concrete about some of the dates as we'd like to be, because it's in the next month or two that'll become absolutely clear. It's kind of unfortunate because then everybody's going to have to scramble once we get that all pretty clear. Memphis is a big deal. It's a little bit different than Windows 95 in the sense that it doesn't force you to add as much memory to your system. It doesn't require new hardware in that sense. And it's not a leap from 16-bit to 32-bit. That's a fundamental change. I mean, we decided we're going to write all our applications in 32-bit. So our applications require Windows 95. And we've actually been very pleased that the Windows 95 upgrade rates, particularly for retail, have continue to be very, very strong. If you take the first month away as a blip, we've basically increased our sales continuously of the Windows 95 upgrade. And that is wonderful for us because it's so strategic to get people up to the 32-bit platform. You can think of Memphis as like a super Windows 95. It will boot faster, a lot faster. Applications will start up a lot faster. We've done some things to the way we manage the disk that really improve the responsiveness quite a bit. The idea of being able to just suspend the machine and put it back on, that will finally work totally. A lot of hardware manufacturers have tried to do suspend things in their portables, but it's never really worked very well. So that on now thing will be a standard feature. People won't reboot very often. They'll mostly suspend, even though booting will be faster. Internet Explorer 4.0 is a big change. It's integrated into the shell. That means you can navigate the web, navigate your file system through one interface. You have these things called channels that you can click on and just see news information or sports information for people who are connected out to the web. That's a very big deal. And there's just a massive number of refinements in this thing. Managing disk space. Right now, if your disk gets full, you don't know what to do. And Memphis will have this thing that if you connect up to our internet site, we'll see if your drivers are out of date, and we'll be able to, we have a download manager built into Memphis. And so any bugs that have come up in Memphis itself or in the drivers, if you get an internet connection, or indirectly, if you connect to a server in a company that's got those bits, Memphis will see, oh, I'm supposed to do that update, and just do it automatically. So that's built in to the system as a facility. The multimedia stuff goes a long ways, the video and audio. It's the first time we really build net meeting and net show in. So your internet telephony is in there and very easy to access. The Outlook Express will be the primary mail client. We'll leave the old mail client in there, which has been the Exchange mail client. But that's just there for people for backwards compatibility, because that mail client is kind of too big and complex in general, and in particular to be the one that's built into Windows. This Outlook Express, which is part of IE4, which will be in Memphis, is the nice little email client that takes care of what a lot of people need. I mean, we still want to sell Outlook either by itself or as part of Office, which is the rich email package, but that's a clear superset. We're talking about the name, and there are people at Microsoft who say, no, let's just call it Windows 97, 98. It'll be late enough for 97 that we'll probably call it Windows 98 if we use that nomenclature. The only problem with that is that it implies it's like Windows 95, where we're trying to make you feel bad, that it's just like a radical change, and you have to get all new applications to take advantage of it. There will not be applications that uniquely require Memphis. People will continue to write 32-bit applications. Applications will run better on Memphis, and there will be distinct things that people do in applications to exploit Memphis. Memphis is where we radically change software install. Software install has been just terrible. I mean, it's awful. If you want to install on a whole bunch of machines, it's hard, and it takes a long time. And if somehow your registry gets messed up, then things stop working and you don't know why. So Memphis has this new concept of install, that every time you run the application, it checks to make sure things are okay, it knows how to fix things. Even if all you've got is a link to the application, it'll know how to go up across the network and find the things it needs to get the application running. So that's been greatly simplified in Memphis. So it's got a lot of stuff across the board. It's also where we get support for Universal Serial Bus, USB, for the faster graphics, AGP, IEEE 1394, which is just starting, but we think that's a very important thing. So it carries DVD support as a drive. So it carries a lot of key hardware initiatives as well. So Memphis is a very big thing, and there's no reason to keep selling Windows 95 once Memphis comes out. Yes, it will continue to be orderable for people who are just don't
Just
like
like
to,
Windows 3.1 is
yeah, just like that. But it is the replacement. There's no reason that anybody would consciously buy Windows 95 if they were really thinking about it, because this is the superior product. The thing that eventually we'll get is the competition between NT and Memphis. Once we get NT5 out, where we finally get plug and play and power management into NT, then the boundary between Memphis and NT, instead of having this family that has a gap, where people don't, there's some people who don't know Windows 95 isn't good enough and NT is too much and missing some things, and still the drivers aren't all perfect. Now we get this family strategy where there's actually a little bit of overlap there. And we will try to drive the commercial market towards NT once NT5 is shipped. We never said to the commercial buyers, oh, you're fools not to buy NT because memory was too expensive and there were some pieces that weren't there. Once we get NT5 out, we'll let anybody buy anything. But our message will be, if you're a business, you should put, and you're buying a new machine that's got enough hardware, enough memory, primarily, usually buy NT for those systems. Whereas for the non-commercial market, for the consumer market, NT, until we do a very special version of NT, which would be well into the future, we talk about something called NTC, NT consumer, but that's not even 98, we won't have something like that. So for the consumer market, the clear offering will be Memphis, and a lot of the business market will keep buying Memphis, particularly for their installed base machines.
Yes?
With the tremendous success of Microsoft and the open marketplace, Bill, how do you continue to motivate and invigorate and draw Microsoft to continue to make more?
Can you hear the question in the back?
Yeah.
Great, so I'll repeat that. It's basically a question about our culture. What is it with our financial success? You get guys like me who've been around 16 years now. How do we, from a cultural standpoint, how do we continue to invigorate, motivate our employees given the accomplishments and financial success of the company?
But it is a challenge. The original vision of the company was a computer on every desk and in every home. And we certainly haven't made a machine that has enough utility or ease of use to fulfill that vision. I mean, there is a lot to be done, and it can be done. And so we can get up every morning and be very excited about what is the future of Windows, what's the future of Office, what's the future of back office, and all these new things that we're trying out. So that's very motivating. We still have I shouldn't say still, we have a very competitive environment. I mean, Oracle says they're going to put us out of business. McNeely says he's going to put us out of business. IBM is still, 6 times bigger than we are, and competing with us on a number of fronts. And so that's kind of an exciting environment. And the whole definition of where does consumer electronics go versus the PC, what does it take to get all the schools in the world to use this, use it in the right way. There's a lot of neat things that are taking place. We're in a position of great responsibility because of the success of our product. In terms of the people, we try to make the jobs fun, and because of all these new things we're tackling, our jobs, in a sense, get bigger and force us to learn new things on a regular basis. Some people do retire, not many, fortunately, and there are lots of new people coming in all the time to help drive things. But we've got to set ambitious goals, and we continue to do that. But that's the kind of thing where there is no succinct answer. I mean, you just have to come in every day, set an example, pick people who are still engaged, and have keep the momentum going, which right now is incredibly strong.
I might add a little bit to that as somebody who has to face that with about 3,500 people in my organization. And, if you step back for a moment and you think about it, we are all incredibly lucky, not just people at Microsoft, but you as well. We live in an incredibly important point in history. Every 200, 300 years there's a paradigm shift. Industrial revolution or renaissance, if you look back, and now it's the information revolution. And so 30, 40 years from now, we're going to be able to look back and say, hey, we were a part of this thing. And, I grew up on a farm in Nebraska. My brother is older, he runs the farm, so I had to find other gainful employment. But the truth is, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I happen to live at this point in time. I happen to be in this industry. I happen to have a great job. And so what I strive to do as a manager inside Microsoft is to make sure that I share that sense of enthusiasm or passion for what it is that we're doing, and then make sure that my managers do that, and their managers do that. Because you'll always, at some point in time, in your career, you just kind of say, hey, gosh, my job isn't as fun as it was the day before. But if you step back and think about all the great things that we have left to do, especially when you think about the vision Bill has articulated, we are going to be able to have a lot of fun in the years to come. And it's a unique opportunity to participate in something that's very special. And we try and inject that into our environment. Yes?
Just in the last couple of days, we've asked a lot of questions about electronic software distribution, and the generic answer has been, every time you download a gate with a 28.8 type thing. But definitely in the future, I think everyone knows that there'll be more and more so. I was wondering what you thought the future of that was, and what the role of us is going to be with selling software, and what type of software you sell it, and what the market is.
Question has to do with electronic software distribution, and the gentleman has to be from the Future Shop in Canada, so he's in particular retail, this retail perspective. I have shared with many people as part of my discussion that, almost 50% of our business in North America is licensed business, which in a certain sense is electronic software distribution, especially if you think about Bill's points about the importance of being very efficient in your connection with customers. The internet and the growth there really makes it very possible for that portion of the business. But, where is this all going? What's it going to be, 5 years from now, where hopefully a large percentage of the homes have access to ADSL, which can give you 6 megabits of bandwidth or better? Will there still be the same kind of packaged product business that we have today? I don't know if you want to jump in, or I can.
Well, definitely there will be retailers that use electronic software distribution, and we'll, work with them. We use the channel, and that to us is a type of channel. I don't think there'll be that much of a shift for people coming in to buy entertainment software or educational software, where you want to see it, you want to see what the breadth of selection is. I don't think that'll shift to electronic very quickly because of the speed of these connections. But if somebody has ADSL, they could certainly download a state-of-the-art game across that type of connection. And so someone will get into the business of letting you come, see all those selections, look at the demos, and being able to get the license across that. And so there's a question for everybody: as that becomes a means that people are getting things, is it something you want to get into or not? And for us, it's just a question of serving everybody who's doing those things. I think the retail environment will continue to be the main place people go to find out about the latest software and see the choices for the next 20 years, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way I think about it is you have to separate sort of what's possible technologically and what's going to happen socially. And this is one of the points Bill makes very well and emphasized at our recent CEO summit. And there's a lot of things that's going to make it technologically possible. But if I were in your shoes, I guess here's how I would go about it. I would make sure that I was investing in Microsoft's internet technologies, Microsoft Commerce Server, and other things that can help me to understand how customers who are of that type of interest in the technology will participate in shopping for software in this online world. But I also wouldn't get myself confused so as much to say that, hey, 3 to 4 years down the road, everybody's just going to stop buying packaged product in the traditional way. Socially, that will not happen. Our history of consumerism in this world is quite rich from a social standpoint. People like to shop. I like to go to retail stores and see what's online or what's there. And sure, I may do some of that online as well, but I think you have both the social habits that will take time to change, and you have the technology coming along. And so the formula that I would give to retailers is say, hey, make some investments. Really understand how you can showcase yourself in an online world, hopefully taking advantage of Microsoft technologies. We're quite glad to help you do that. We have people who specialize in helping you do that. But keep in mind that you have both the technological possibility and the social habits that have to evolve. We'll go up here.
Somewhat along those lines, there's been rumors that Microsoft is considering opening a retail store. Can you
Yeah, the question is Microsoft opening up a retail store? There's been rumors in that regard. Specifically, there was an article in USA Today about 2-3 months ago that said that Sony was building a mega complex in San Francisco, and Microsoft might be taking space in that complex. I don't know if you knew about that, so I thought Funny thing is, I read USA Today and I didn't know about it either. So, yeah, it's always great to, it's one of the things, going back to the cultural point, we have a lot of enthusiastic employees. No, quite seriously, the notion, and I've made this point to many of you, is we're a company that is in part been successful because we really focus in on our core competencies. And, when I came into this job, about 80% of our business was through the channel. Now about 99% of our business is through the channel. And that is our approach. The opportunity to participate in something like that would be as a showcase, like Nike Town does it. We've never been able to figure out a financial formula that would really make sense. And we wouldn't want to do it as something that would now put us in a position as a competitor to the channels that really sell our software. And so I don't think you're going to see us in the Sony complex in San Francisco. It's something, if at some point in time, it would make sense. It would make sense almost on the